Welcome into the show today. Thank you for making this podcast a part of your day. Hit that subscribe button if you are watching on YouTube or listening somewhere else. Today's podcast, I want to talk about another rumored quarterback that could become the Minnesota Vikings backup quarterback very, very soon. And this has really been a long discussion all offseason because the Vikings reportedly offered Darnold, Daniel Jones, and had a long discussion about Aaron Rodgers. So the quarterback dilemma has been a long, drawn-out process for the Vikings this year. But before I dive into that, I must tell you about 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. My wife and I were in the market for a complete remodel. Our bathroom was disgusting. Blue floors, handrails, moldy walls, one sink, ugly vanity. We needed the whole thing rooted and replaced. We needed a modern look. And I threw out some feelers to some companies, and they said, 6 to 8 weeks, 3 to 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks. And my wife and I weren't really interested in waiting that long. We wanted the project done as quickly as it could be done, and we wanted it done right. So we found 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. Take a look at these before and after videos if you are on YouTube. Disgusting moldy shower, one step going into the bath. We hated that. Just in the way, made the bathroom feel small. One sink, and voila. Sink gone, no mold, updated bathroom, modern look. Sure, we invested money into the bathroom, but it was an investment. When you put money into the bathroom or the kitchen, you get that money back. Double sink vanity, modern bathroom. In 48 hours. 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. If you want affordable pricing, convenient timing, and a spectacular modern look in your bathroom, Google 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. Get a free consultation. And if you're anything like us, you're going to sign on that dotted line right away because you are going to be convinced that this is the only way to go. 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. Okay, so here we go. The rumored quarterback that's really been rumored all offseason, there's been a few. Ryan Tannehill was rumored to the Vikings. And another guy rumored to the Vikings as a possibility is Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco is not young, and I'm surprised he still wants to play. He's 40 years old, and he's bounced around between a bunch of teams in these last few years. The Jets, 2022, Cleveland, 2023, and Indianapolis last season. And you look at his numbers, and they're not going to wow you, but they're certainly not terrible for a quarterback that's as old as Flacco. Last year, 12 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's pretty good. In 2023, he had that run with Cleveland, where I think they went to the playoffs. He went 4-1 as their starter and threw for 13 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. In 2022, Flacco, 5 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Flacco is the perfect quarterback for the Vikings and is a way better option than Ryan Tannehill, who has not taken a snap in 2 years. When the Vikings were rumored to get Tannehill, I'm like, why? Sure, he has experience being a starting quarterback several years ago, but he did not play one NFL down last year. So I don't like the idea of pursuing him. But Flacco has experience, won a Super Bowl, and also, if he needs to step in for a game or two, or a series or two, I actually kind of trust him. Flacco does not lack confidence when he throws the football. And he gives his wide receivers an opportunity to make a play. That's what he's known for. And sometimes it gets a little reckless and he gives them too much of an opportunity to make a play. But if you are going to look at the backup quarterback market right now, and your options are very limited, Joe Flacco, Ryan Tannehill, Carson Wentz. I kind of like Carson Wentz, actually, but I also like Joe Flacco. And if the Vikings were going to bring in Flacco, I would have no pushback to that signing whatsoever. The Vikings have missed on the best backup quarterbacks, and those guys were signed multiple weeks ago. The Gardner Minshews and the Mac Joneses, those guys are already gone. So you are last at the meal. And who are you going to bring in? Because I think the backup quarterback job needs to be held to a more valuable spot than we actually give it. Because every single starting quarterback is one play away from being injured the entire season. And it can be as simple as a non-contact injury. We don't know how McCarthy hurt his knee, but he stayed in the entire game, or at least the amount of time that he was scheduled to play. Kirk Cousins, non-contact ruptured Achilles injury. It can be as simple as that for a season to go completely down the tank. And the question that you need to answer is, if McCarthy goes down with an injury, which quarterback do you think could keep the Vikings treading water? And the quarterback that I believe gives the Vikings the best opportunity to do that right now is Joe Flacco. Because as old as he is, his numbers are still pretty good. And he gives the Vikings that valuable experience as a backup quarterback to McCarthy that he can lean on during the NFL season to answer questions and do the whole tape thing and do the whole film thing together. So you look at the options, and I think Joe Flacco at this point in time makes the most amount of sense for the Vikings. One of the top reasons that the Vikings have not signed a backup quarterback yet, and it's practically been confirmed, and the Purple Persuasion sent this out on X the other day, and I completely agree with it. He says, it's essentially confirmed that the Vikings are waiting till after the draft, comp pick reasons, before they sign QB2 to back up J.J. McCarthy. A popular name that's been floated out there is veteran QB Joe Flacco. While he may be the target, it's worth noting that Kevin O'Connell and Minnesota passed on Flacco in 2023 when Kirk Cousins went down with an injury and they traded for Josh Dobbs. Something to keep in mind. If the season is looking like it's going to go down the crapper because McCarthy goes down with an injury, well, Rodgers would be nice. But outside of Rodgers at this point in time, Joe Flacco would be the best option. Okay, next story regarding the Vikings. And this also comes via the Purple Persuasion, because nobody does a better job at gathering stories from around the world about the Minnesota Vikings than the Purple Persuasion. And he found this from ESPN. Matt Miller at NFL Draft Scout on X posted this. Miller, the Minnesota Vikings have only 4 selections in this draft, including no second rounder. The Vikings have less draft capital than any other team. At number 24 overall, they could benefit from sliding back to a spot like Buffalo, number 30, or Kansas City, number 31, to add extra picks. Minnesota could fill needs at defensive back or defensive tackle later in round 1. Now, you hear anyone talk about this NFL draft, and everybody talks about how good the depth is at the NFL draft this year. But let's also be honest about that. Nobody really knows how much depth there is at the NFL draft, because nobody knows how any of these guys are going to pan out. And when I hear someone say you could get a player at number 30 that could be equally good at number 10, it tells me also that maybe the top picks in the draft are not nearly as good as they are historically. So you can look at things both sides, both ways. And this is going to be a common thread that you see over the next 2.5 weeks as the NFL draft builds up. The Vikings' likelihood to trade down is probably high because of their pick situation. And I just want to caution the Minnesota Vikings on trading down, because if you trade down from pick 24 and pick 24 or pick 25 or pick 26 becomes a superstar player, a defensive tackle or a secondary player that the Vikings could have snagged, then you look really, 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 really stupid. Everyone's going to point back to that draft and say, the Vikings missed on this guy, and they could have drafted this player, and they missed. And Kwesi should be fired because he traded down again to acquire more picks, and these guys suck anyway. I think sometimes we get so caught up in how many players you can draft instead of making sure you draft a damn stud. Make sure the guy that you are drafting can play for years to come. So many times you get stuck on depth pieces and finding a guy that can be on special teams or finding a guy that can be a backup corner or a defensive tackle for the long run. Find a guy that can play. Find a guy that can start, and you can find your depth pieces somewhere else. From practice squads and from cuts and from different areas. You focus so much on collecting so many draft picks. And this was Rick Spielman's specialty while he was in Minnesota. Oh, look at me. I've got so many picks. Look at us. We're special. We have 8 5th and 6th round picks. Look at us. We have so much draft capital. We're special. We're going to get so many players. How many of those guys could even play? Sure, cool. You have 8 5th round picks. Cool, good for you. Are any of them any good? Are any of them actually able to play 3 downs defensively or offensively? Can any of these guys do something more than run down and catch the ball after a touchback on a kickoff? So, I think sometimes general managers in NFL organizations get so caught up in the amount of picks that they can acquire than actually focusing on drafting the best player at that spot. Because that's what we want, and that's what they want. But in their minds, they started getting thirsty. And they're like, oh, well, what we could do is we could draft a star at 30, and then we could draft a star at 31. And instead of having one star, we could have two stars. It doesn't always work like that. What they should be focused on is drafting one star at 24 and finding a guy that can play. Finding a guy that can make an impact right away on the Minnesota Vikings. So I get that the Vikings are likely to trade down because their draft capital is so small. But they still have important picks. They still have a first-round pick. It's not like they're filled with 4 fifth-round picks. They still have a first-round pick that could be a very good player, that could be a superstar. So focus on that pick, draft a superstar, and let's go. Who cares if you have 9 picks in the draft? Get a guy that can play. So I just want to caution the Vikings on trading down. Thank you for watching this episode. Check out 5-Star Bath Solutions of Minneapolis. Thank you for making this podcast part of your day. Hit that subscribe button wherever you're watching or listening.